You do the work nobody notices until it disappears. You take the notes. You order the food. You remember the new hire's first day. You smooth over the tension no one else acknowledges. You stay late to fix what someone else left unfinished. You wake up already tired, and somehow you are still not the person they choose. There's a name for what you've been doing. It is called office housework. And the fact that you did not know it was a category is part of how the system works. Office housework is not in your job description. It is the invisible layer underneath it. Note-taking, morale management, conflict absorption, onboarding, logistics coordination, emotional temperature control. None of it is in your title. All of it lands on you. You did not volunteer for this. You said yes once, then twice. Then your yes calcified into expectation. And now it is simply assumed. You reread your emails 3 times before sending. You soften requests you have every right to make directly. You prepare for meetings like you are going to court, because somewhere along the way, you learned your margin for error is narrower than everyone else's. You cannot afford to seem difficult, so you manage every signal you send and absorb every signal they do not bother sending back. Your colleague, call her Diane, booked a blow-dry appointment on a Thursday afternoon. She came back glowing. By end of day, she was CC'd on a new cross-functional initiative. Diane did not take notes at last week's all-hands. Diane did not coordinate the offsite. Diane spent 4 minutes laughing with the VP in the elevator, and now she is on his radar. Diane is not malicious. She just does not pay the tax. You watched that happen and told yourself it meant nothing. You went back to your inbox. You sent a follow-up on a project no one had acknowledged. You triple-checked your tone. Here is what is actually happening beneath that. The more reliably you do invisible work, the more of it you get. The more you absorb, the less time you have for visible output. The less visible output you produce, the more you appear to lack leadership potential. You are not falling behind. You are being used up. The trap closes from both sides. Saying yes is career limiting. Saying no feels career threatening. Nobody told you that. Nobody had to. The social architecture teaches it through size, through quiet, through the slight shift in someone's expression when you push back. And here is what makes it genuinely devastating. None of this appears in your performance review. The notes you took are not in the system. The conflict you absorbed is not on the dashboard. The new hire you onboarded does not generate a metric with your name on it. Leadership sees outputs. It does not see inputs. If your inputs are split between real work and invisible labor, your outputs look weaker. Not because you are weaker, because you are running 2 jobs. You start to wonder if the problem is you. Maybe you are not strategic enough. Maybe you should have been less available earlier. Maybe you positioned yourself wrong. This is the self-blame loop the system is built to produce. It is more efficient than admitting the structure is extractive. So you try something. You start declining the small asks. You stop volunteering for coordination work. You say you do not have bandwidth. The social temperature drops immediately. Someone sighs. Someone goes quiet in a way that registers. A peer says, almost lightly, that they thought you were a team player. Nobody threatens you. Nobody is even unkind. The pressure is ambient. It does not need to be stated to be felt. You are now monitoring 2 things at once: the work itself and what every move signals about who you are. This is not tiredness. This is hypervigilance turned chronic. Your brain is running 2 tracks in every meeting, every email, every hallway exchange. That is not a personality trait. That is the cost of operating in an environment where the rules are never written down, but always enforced. You lose sleep before the quarterly review, not because you underperformed, because you cannot figure out how to make invisible labor legible. You shrink your accomplishments when people ask. You do not want to seem like you are overclaiming. You do not want to take up too much space. Meanwhile, a peer claims credit for a meeting you structured, loudly, with 0 visible consequence. Then the project lead announcement comes through, and it is not your name. The next morning, a cheerful message arrives asking if you can help coordinate the kickoff. The sender does not see the irony. She is not trying to extract from you. She genuinely cannot see the structure from where she stands. The system has never been uncomfortable for her. She is simply inside it, protected, with no reason to look down at the floor she is standing on. You sit with that message for a moment. and something cold and clarifying moves through you. The system is not malicious. That is actually the hardest part to accept. Nobody gathered in a room and decided to drain you. Nobody wrote a memo assigning invisible labor to you specifically. It happened through norms, through defaults, through the accumulation of small, socially enforced decisions nobody had to sign their name to. Offices do not advertise that some employees will carry more invisible weight than others. They do not have to. The expectation is enforced through microenvironments, through who gets thanked and who gets assumed, through who receives a gentle check-in when something slips and who gets a performance note, through who gets CC'd after 4 minutes in an elevator and who gets passed over after years of documented results. HR does not track office housework. HR tracks complaints, risk, and optics. The invisible labor is invisible to HR by design, not because HR is cruel, because invisible labor does not generate a paper trail. It generates a functioning team, and functioning teams do not trigger alarms. Leadership sees who presents. It does not see who prepared. Leadership sees the polished output. It does not see the 18 things that had to be quietly managed before the output existed. That is not an accident. That is how attention works when no one is incentivized to look deeper. The people who rise are not always the most capable. They are often the most visible, and visibility is easier to maintain when you are not absorbing the operational friction of an entire team. You have been absorbing that friction. For months, possibly years, meetings run smoother because of you. The new hire landed well because of you. The offsite did not unravel because of you. The team functions because of you. And nobody knows. Not leadership, not your manager, not even your team, because that is what invisible means. The question most people ask at this point is the wrong one. They ask, how do I get credit for the housework? That question leads nowhere useful. The housework is structurally designed to be uncreditable. That is not a presentation problem you can fix. That is the architecture. The real question is different. The real question is why you are the one doing it. The answer is not that you are the most organized. It is not that you are the most capable. It is not even that you were enthusiastic enough early on. It is that the system identified you as someone who could be asked, someone who would absorb the cost, someone who would say yes or say nothing, and manage the discomfort quietly enough that no one had to deal with it. That is not a compliment in disguise. That is a cost center with your name on it. You do not need a script for saying no. You do not need a new strategy for reclaiming credit retroactively. What you need is to see clearly what has been happening. You have been treated as the default. The default is not recognition. The default is extraction. When you can name that, not as an abstract concept but as the actual operating logic of the environment around you, something shifts. Not everything changes at once, but your perception does. And perception is the beginning of everything that actually matters. You stop reading the situation as evidence of your worth. You start reading it as a structure that needed someone to run on, found you willing, and called it initiative. Seeing the board does not make the board disappear, but it means you stop losing a game you did not know you were playing. That is not a small thing. That is the only thing.